Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our webinar today, Cash Flow Confidence in 2025. Thank you all so much for joining on this day. I hope we've all got our fans on, even though it does seem to be a bit cooler today, which we're all grateful for. So before we kick off and I hand you over to your speakers, I'd just like to invite you to use the chat or Q&A function throughout if you've got any questions or comments for our speakers. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Rich Foster and Sam Hurley, who is going to take you through the webinar today. So Rich, over to you.
Thank you very much, Holly. Hi everybody. It's great to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be discussing cash flow confidence in 2025 and what recruitment businesses need to know. We're joined today by Sam Hurley from APSCo, brings a wealth of experience in recruitment strategy, operational resilience, and hopefully market trends for us today. So Sam's going to help us explore some of the broader factors that influence financial confidence, from productivity, automation, to leadership and market readiness. So Sam, it's great to have you with us today.
Really great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you. So we're going to try and split it into four major topics today, and we're just going to have a bit of a back and forth conversation, hopefully answer a few questions along the way. So we're going to be looking at service levels and how you maintain those while saving costs, automation and the impact that might have on your business, market trends, looking at the APSCo reports on those, and then your people and training within the business. So we know that confidence and cash flow is one of the biggest challenges facing the recruitment sector right now, whether it's unpredictable client demand, rising costs, or the pressure to do more with less. I was looking at the APSCo member survey, and within that, 72% of recruitment businesses have reported cash flow pressure due to increased contractor numbers and delayed payments this year. So it clearly is a moot point that everybody is talking about at the moment. So Sam, if I can ask you first about service levels and keeping them strong whilst reviewing costs, how might businesses look at basically maintaining service levels, but at the same time, obviously, whilst looking to maybe reduce members of staff or reducing services that they're using at the moment? What are your takes on that?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. I think the members, I speak to a lot of members, and most of my members are saying we need to do more with less. You know, we've got less people, and we need to improve our productivity. We need to decrease our cost of sale as far as we possibly can. I think everyone on that will resonate with everybody in the room. Look, you'd expect me to say, wouldn't you, automation is one of the ways that you can do that. Not necessarily AI, but certainly automation. I think they tend to get lumped together, those two things, but certainly automating some of your processes will give you a productivity gain for obvious reasons. I see a lot of inertia in the market or amongst our members who they want to do something, but they don't quite know how to start. They don't know where to start. There's lots of shiny new tools out there, and they don't really know where to start. Look, I think that your back office, I think your finance function can be a really useful and good place to start. Wherever you've got a bottleneck or you've got a lot of admin work being done by humans that could be doing much more valuable work, those are the places to start. I think looking at picking some automation tools or whatever. Pick one, start with one, let it work for you 24/7, free up your people. You've got to get that integration and adoption piece right, but that will only, I believe, as long as you manage, it's adopted properly within the business. I think that's one of the biggest things. That will improve your service levels, but will allow you to become more productive. And I know this is a bit of a boring one, but you really need to make sure that your data is right before you do that. Before you put any tool in place, you need to understand that the decisions you're making are based on really good data, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point on that. So we've seen people move to more, I guess, intelligent CRM systems, and they have actually spent money on those because of the long-term savings. But actually, the amount of work that needs to go in to make sure that all the fields are completed, that they're up to date, and you don't just put in the minimum requirements to get it through to the next stage. if you're not doing that, you're missing out on so much analysis and actually all the time savings probably. And I think from me, obviously as Giant Finance, so we provide invoice finance just for the recruitment sector, and we're doing all of the back office. What we've seen a lot of in the last 12 months has been people coming to us and said, I've met with my accountant and you're my biggest cost, so therefore I need to get rid of you. And we have seen people move to straight invoice finance business away from us. And what that does is save them a lot of money on the top line, but actually then they're doing their credit control themselves. They don't have bad debt protection anymore. They don't have a payroll system, etc. So my message here is really not to make those knee-jerk decisions where it's going to save you a couple of thousand maybe in month one, but then you're going to end up spending, or you're going to put extra pressure on your staff, you may end up leaving, etc. So it's trying to marry those two things, I think, and that really is the difficulty, I guess, at this point.
Absolutely. This is going to be really boring because we're going to agree on this one completely, Richard. I think understanding exactly what you say, understanding where you're focusing resource currently, understanding what systems you have, which bits are resource heavy, where the bottlenecks are. That's so important, and understanding the actual data, like you say, in the CRM from a sales point of view, rather than back office, but from a sales point of view, understanding, knowing, because I've spoken to a lot of members that said this, we thought our best client was this company. And actually, turns out our most profitable client is this company over here that we weren't paying anywhere near as much attention to. And that is so, so important. And I think data, it is dull. I mean, if you're a recruiter, it is a bit dull. If you're a finance person, maybe slightly less. But it's so, so important. And I think as well, this is more kind of on the sales side, but ensuring you've got that good sales and back office processes in place is really important. But what I'm seeing as well is a shift from, someone said this to me the other day and I loved it, that age of the rock star recruiter, that recruiter who didn't really do anything you needed them to in the background, didn't really put stuff on the system, whatever, but traded on their personality and did great deals, really profitable. But nowadays we have so much reliance as a business. If you're not relying on your data, if you're not looking at your data as a business now, you're in big trouble, I think, because I think that's becoming more and more important. And I'm seeing a change in the way businesses are being managed in terms of that. There's, the KPIs have always been there to some extent, but they're being much more closely managed, I'm seeing now.
Sam, just on that point as well, actually, and the rock star recruiter, I love that phrase, and I know exactly the type of person you're referring to. But I think what clients want from recruitment businesses now is the analytics. So gone are the days where you hide your pay rate and you just give them this is what we're going to charge you. You don't know what goes on in the background. They want to know that their workers are being paid compliantly and on time and being given everything they should be, all workers' rights. But also the analytics of how, not how we can make more from you, but how we can better service through numbers, through reporting, etc. So that's a really key thing for retaining business, I think, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're not the only ones living in this age of automation and AI. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in our whole lives, isn't it? But our end client community and our candidates so much more sophisticated than they were even 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, to be honest, since COVID, because things are moving so fast. The tech moves so fast, doesn't it? And their expectations are so much higher in terms of what they're expecting from their recruitment partners. And if you're going to genuinely be a recruitment partner rather than a transactional supplier, then you're absolutely right. Having that, that level of management information that you almost don't need to generate for them, but is just available for them. And a much more automated service. I've had quite a few members have talked to me about, concerns. I was at a lunch just last week with members, and they were saying, some of them were saying, we're concerned because we don't want to lose human quality out of, it's really important. It's really valuable in the recruitment process that you have that human intervention. Absolutely is. But a lot of candidates expect the first part of the process nowadays to be automated. You know,
Yeah.
there is this rise in, you know, agentic AI and these AI agents, as long as they're saying they're AI agents, you're taking over that first part of the process. I think that's, you know, it's really interesting. But from a back office point of view as well, I'm sure, like you say, you're seeing it, you know, there's a really sophisticated requirement there from clients now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to lose that quality and the human touch, as you say. It will just reduce the process, because if you've got 1,000 CVs, well, it can sift them in 30 seconds and say, right, these are the 30 that tick everything you need. Over to you, Mr. or Mrs. Human, and get on with it, basically. Now use your recruitment skills. And I think, just on sticking with the sort of cash flow and people, a lot of the agencies, a lot of our clients that I speak to, are reluctant to get rid of people. So, you know, make redundancies because they've been with them a long time, etc. What we've actually seen, a few examples recently, are clients where they're still using old school paper timesheets and then manually entering them each week. They employ administrators for a day a week, basically, to do that. So we've moved them onto our online timesheet system. So it's taken a job away, but they haven't made that person redundant. They've moved them into a sales role, or they've moved them into a reporting role. So actually, they've created a new job that actually will be more profitable because they're saving time, basically. So we're really pushing for that on that online.
It's that cost of sale piece. You have to bring that cost of sale down.
Yeah.
If you're as a leadership team, if you're not looking at that, you know, it's going to get tricky, because I think sorry, I'm probably bouncing all over the place, but if you look at the market where we are now, look, I think it is starting to slowly improve a little bit. It's certainly, I feel like it's not going down further, so maybe things are getting a bit more consistent. But if you're not really looking at your business, we're not going to see that bounce that we did. We're not going to see that sudden increase back to the way it used to be. I really don't think we are. I'd like to think that 2026 will start to see some growth in the economy, but it's not going to be the boom that we've had previously. I think the effects of automation and AI in the wider market, I think this is what we've got, and you really do need to be as effective and efficient and productive as you can be as a business now.
Yeah. So, I mean, our second question, as you say, we've bounced around, but I think it's appropriate we do talk about everything at the same time, really. But automation, then, so we're talking not just AI, I guess, but any process you're doing within your business. Now is the time to sort of consolidate and look at it. So you may not be as busy preparing for growth again. So it's just going through, looking at all those core processes. That's what we're doing with our clients at the moment. How do you onboard? You know, what's your aftercare like with your clients and your candidates? Because they're more important than ever now. The loyalty you want to breed, I think, with your clients and candidates is so important.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think working with your end clients to in a more of a partnership, you know, working in a more consultative fashion with them, rather than, as I said, in that that more transactional way, so that you're actually you're working with them, you're understanding what their needs are, and you're working with them to provide those, so they see you as a partner. I know all this sounds, you know, these are really great buzzwords, but I've genuinely seen that change within recruitment businesses, and it does have a real impact. And it will, you know, it will improve. It'll help you in terms of the consistency of your forecasting. I imagine you've seen that.
Yes, we absolutely have. The other trend that we're also seeing at the moment, Sam, is we're getting a lot of perm agencies. So that's all they've ever done is basically place perm clients, and never really wanted to get into that contractor market, but having to diversify basically and go down that route. So they've not needed invoice finance before. You know, they've been able to not have many outgoings, really, I guess, other than their sort of commission payments, etc. So there's a change to that. So I think, again, I'm moving on a bit, talking about different sectors, etc. But people are, or agencies certainly are, looking at different ways now of changing what they've done, rather than just keep doing the same thing and you know, it not working.
I think that's, I mean, we are in a challenging market, and there's still such a level of uncertainty in the economy as a whole, globally as well, obviously. And so end clients are, this will resonate with everybody on the call, I'm sure, end clients are taking such a long time to make decisions. You know, that decision-making process has been drawn out hugely, 2, 3, 4 times longer than it used to be in some cases. So trying to forecast, I mean, as APSCo, and we're not a recruitment business, obviously that's our market, but that's what our members do, but trying to forecast, reliably forecast in such an inconsistent and uncertain market is really difficult. You know, trying to plan, you know, I think I am still seeing our members, you know, strategizing a year ahead, but no more really than a year, certainly. But trying to, you know, come up with medium or long-term strategy or forecasting when you're in such an uncertain market, which you know you generally don't know what's going to happen month from month. It's so difficult to predict, is really tricky. I mean, that's a really hard job for any finance team. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's bad enough if you've got a significant contract business, but if you're a perm only business without that annuity contract income, you know you're starting again from scratch each month, aren't you? I mean, that is really tricky. And I would say, I mean, certainly at the moment, our trends, we produce monthly trends. I'm sure a lot of the audience know. We produce those with Bullhorn, and perm did take a bit of it did perk up a bit actually just after Christmas, but at the moment it's down year on year and month on month. Our contract numbers, our contract vacancies are up, not very much, but just a little bit. You know, they're going the right direction, both year on year and month on month. They are up. So, you know, hopefully we're starting to see more contract business happening. But of course, the real sign of a strong growth labour market will be when the perm recruitment starts. You know, when those perm placements really start to rise, that's when we know that we're back on a sure footing. But yeah, it's so difficult right now.
Yeah, I think everyone's waiting for that. I mean, this year seems to have been, or certainly last 18 months, waiting for something to happen before they make a decision. So it was who's going to get into power. Then it was waiting for the changes to payroll legislation, etc. You know, we've got umbrella legislation changes coming next year, and it's all like, well, we'll do that then. But unfortunately, as the agencies or recruitment businesses, now is the time you've got to be prepared for that, because if you're not, others will be, and that's when they'll take the lead in these things.
Yeah.
One of the other things I just wanted to touch on, Sam, as well today was obviously talking about cash flow, but around sort of credit control side of things. So a couple of things I just took again from the APSCo reports. The average DSO in recruitment has stretched from 42 days to 49 days in 2025. So your clients are holding on to your money for an extra week at the moment. If you're payrolling 50,000 a week, that's 50,000 extra pounds you need to find from somewhere. 1 in 4 recruitment businesses are now using invoice financing or funding partners to help support payroll. So that's obviously becoming more and more accepted. I think there used to be, Holly, you wrote a blog today about myths of invoice finance, I remember seeing earlier. So I think some of those things are being addressed. And just again, backing this up, this is from Barclays SME Outlook actually. 60% of UK recruitment firms say that client payment terms have worsened since 2024. So we know cash flow is important. I think having something, you know, if you haven't got your own credit control policy in place, if you haven't got a bad debt protection, something like an invoice finance partner, be that Giant, hopefully, or be that another one of the companies out there, it gives a separation of duties, which is great, because when you're trying to maintain those client relationships at the moment, you don't want to be in the same breath as asking for 10 contractor placements. By the way, you owe me £5,000, it's overdue, etc. So you can separate those duties, get somebody else to do it, and it maintains that relationship. And also, we've seen a huge increase in credit insurance claims this year. You know, number of insolvencies. Sam, you will know more about these numbers than me, particularly in recruitment, actually. But with credit insurance, you've just got that peace of mind there. So if it's not something you guys have already, doing it through a full back office partner, it's cost effective. they're getting it at a fraction of the price. And it just means every time you deal with a new business, you can do the searches up front, you know who you're dealing with, you can look at the contractual terms, is there pay when paid in there, etc. All these things you can get assistance with, and make sure that when you've done all that hard work of making a placement, you're not going to find out 30 days down the road you're not going to get paid for it. So a bit off topic, Sam, but I just wanted to
no I think I think that's really interesting, and I completely agree. I mean, I think just a couple of things I would add to that. So insolvencies, totally agree with you, but let's kind of move over that and just say, look, if you're here now, you're halfway through 2025. I think for a lot of businesses, it's a holding pattern. It's we've got to get through the rest of this year. I think, like you said, lots of things have been going on. We've got the budget coming up in October. I would imagine, based on what's been happening recently, that we won't see any major changes. We might see a tax increase, a personal tax increase, but that will go down better than the NI increases did last year. That will not destabilise the market, I don't think, in the same way that did last year. So I don't think, I think I'm not an economist, but in my belief, I think we could start to see, some real consolidation, consistency coming to the market early in 2026. I'd really like that. So I think if you can get through this year, like you say, if you're a well-run, compliant, appropriate business, and you just keep at it, there are always there are always opportunities. Even in a market like this, there are always opportunities out there for a well-run business. I think that there are opportunities out there, and you just got to get through what is going to be a challenging second half of the year. But I had somebody the other day saying it's going to be 2027, but actually I think that's pessimistic. I think we will start to see enough of an improvement in the labour market in 2026 is my view. And also I would say, for all the finance people that are on the call today, look, if you're an APSCo member, certainly, take advantage of those peer-to-peer groups, because it can be really soul destroying, thinking this is happening to you and your business, and you're completely on your own and everyone else is doing brilliantly, or even if they're not, you don't realize that actually a lot of people are going through the same stresses and difficulties that you are. And if you come along, we have a credit control forum, which is a closed group where they can talk quite openly. It's Chatham House rules. We have our FD forum, and it's a really good opportunity to hear from other people and understand what they're doing, and get ideas from other businesses as well around how they are dealing with things. I think that sort of thing, I say this to every member that I speak to, is just, I know you feel like you haven't got the time, but it's 3 hours out of your day. Get up from your desk, get out of your head, out of your business, and see what's going on outside, because I think it can be really, really helpful. From a mental health point of view, if nothing else.
Absolutely, problem shared and all that. But we've actually had a few clients that have actually consolidated with other agencies. So they've basically pooled resources, as it were. We're really good at this. We've got this. Why don't we say we do something together? Because I've got the workers, you've got the contracts, and that doesn't always work, clearly, but there's been some real successes and people open to different things, I think, at the moment. Sam, just moving us on slightly, we've talked about market trends, really. But one thing I wanted to talk about was kind of sectors. So again, we've seen agencies try to diversify during this quiet period, as it were, to obviously see if there's different areas that they can place workers into, place candidates. Having a niche is still great, and if you've got that, I would say stick to it. However, there is definitely things that you can do. We've also seen a lot of our clients look globally for the first time. So we've got Giant Global that can help with that, and we've got people that got contracts now in Belgium, the Netherlands, and quite a lot of US work as well. So from an APSCo perspective, Sam, are you seeing more and more of that outside of the UK?
Gosh, absolutely. So I think diversification is such an important topic for our members at the moment. We held a Disrupt session a few weeks ago, and so many members, and it was on diversification, and so many members were talking about the issues that they're having and what they're looking at, how they're looking at, and it's about that risk versus the reward, because there's always a risk if you diversify, but there may be a real reward in terms of increased growth or some growth. And it's not just about, like you say, it's not just about the sectors you're in, and there is that versus, do I stick to the niche that I'm in, or do I look at other sectors, which can, as we said, can be a risk. But sticking, if this is your niche area and this is what you're really good at, you can stick to that. But there are still things you can do to diversify. You can look at other supply models, for instance. I mean, you've already talked about the, contract perm versus contract, or, people moving into contract businesses that aren't already there. But there are other supply models out there. It's worth understanding what your clients want. I think that's the biggest thing, is it's understanding what your clients want and need, but particularly from a geographical point of view. I mean, if before COVID, these are made up stats, by the way, in my head, but before COVID, I would say that about 25 to 30% of our members did some work overseas. Now it's more like, it's close on 100%. I mean, it's probably about 90 something percent, because even if they're only dabbling, but now even more so, more and more so, people are either working from the UK, servicing other countries from the UK, or they're opening up offices. Now, and obviously, that is a real risk, and you've got to, you've got to know that that's what you want to do, and that you've got the framework in place to say, right, we're going to go this far, and then we'll make a decision about whether this is working or not. And it is a tricky one, because you've got to get that culture thing right in terms of your internal business and the culture of the business where you're moving to. But the US, particularly the US, we are, so many members are either servicing it from the UK or already doing that, and are or have moved into the US as well. And of course, everyone always wants to go to New York. I would just say to everyone, it's really, really expensive, really expensive. Don't go there. Lots of other places to go. I mean, we hold, APSCo holds trade delegations every year, and so we normally do 2 a year, and at least one of those every year is to the US. And we go to different places in the US. We always go to New York, because everyone always says, I want to go to New York. But actually, I mean, so this year in, I think, October, we're going to Chicago. We've been to Austin. We've been to North Carolina. There are so many places where it's much cheaper to set up a business, but you can service, a really great market from there. It's really worth looking at. But it's also, if that isn't where you think your business is right now, and you are just looking at this niche, whether it's looking at other service lines or just looking at those value add services that you can provide, understanding, and good professional recruiters will do this anyway, but properly understanding that the market you're recruiting into and what your clients are looking at and what other issues they've got, understanding what their pain points are and what their problems are, will help you come up with ideas of how to solve those problems for them with new service lines or added services, added on services, which is, as we said before, it's just getting away from that transactional process where you're not really seen as a valued partner. You're seen, I mean, you might be seen as a valued supplier. I'm not suggesting you can't do that. It's just, it can be a good place to look for growth. And new sectors. Look, there are some really traditionally, we're not in a recession exactly, but traditionally recession-proof sectors. The public sector is normally one of those. I'm not sure about healthcare at the moment. Education is certainly one of those, but there are pockets there. There's a lot of energy stuff going on. Actually, traditional oil and gas energy is pretty resilient at the moment. Interestingly. The renewables, everyone always talks about, there are sectors that you can look into, but you need to research it well and understand exactly what you're letting yourself in for, what you're expecting from your business.
I think the preparation is the key thing. Is that we've got clients that have, as I say, moved into the US market now, and I know a lot more than I did 6 months ago about every state has their own different laws in terms of invoicing and employment, etc. So
it's federal, isn't it? It's just not the same as the UK.
No, and they are very different as well in terms of each state. So just know, obviously you'll go where the work is, but make sure you're looking into that state and looking what the laws are, etc. Or use somebody again plug, but Giant Global or equivalent, they can help you with those things and take all that pain away. Brilliant. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
The last topic we had today was just around leadership and team readiness, really, but also training and making the people or the employees that you've got as good as they can be, really. Is there anything, Sam, you'd like to sort of talk about on that topic?
Yeah, I just have to try really hard not to get on my soapbox on this one, because I feel
Please
really
do.
strongly. I feel so strongly about this. Look, I think in more challenging markets, training is one of the first things that goes out the window. A bit like in the old days, it was marketing. Nowadays, obviously, everyone's marketing, sales, marketing led, so it's not the same anymore. But people think, oh, we're not going to, training is the thing we'll cut right now. But what I would say, and this goes from the top down, because I think it's as important in your leadership team as it is in the rest of your business. In a more challenging environment, you need people that have the skills, not just the normal skills and abilities they need to do their job, but they have to have those extra skills and abilities to guide you through this challenging time. So particularly your leadership team need to be ready to guide the business through this really challenging time. It's what we were talking about a few minutes ago about, if you're not looking at data at the moment, then you should be. And I think if your leadership team is it's fantastic, they're great, I'm sure, but if they don't have that skill and understanding for this really prolonged, difficult market that we're in to help navigate the business through it, then it's going to be more difficult for the business. And I think it's the same with your sales teams. I mean, a lot of the problems that I've seen within recruitment businesses is they took on loads of salespeople post-COVID in that lovely 2022 year that we had, that bounce year, and they were just servicing clients. They weren't really doing any business development. They weren't really selling in the same way. Yeah. And now we are, more than 2 years into quite a difficult market. I think there's a real lack of, in some businesses, I think, to be honest, across the sector, I'm seeing a lot of members telling me there's a real lack of those business developments and true sales skills. But also it's pivoting your team to be in that more consultative sales role as well, that your more experienced people might not necessarily have done previously. So, but then it's also your back office teams as well. Don't forget your back office teams. It's just as important, because I think, and you'll be able to speak to this much better than I am, but I think for some people, there's you could really think, oh, well, we're so busy. I'll just cut these corners. I'll just do this. And the compliance can be the thing that can drop a bit. I have seen that happen. It can drop in a difficult market when you just don't think you can afford the time to do that or whatever. And I think it's that understanding of when we're just not just ticking boxes, but we actually work this way for a reason, and there's a really good reason for this. So it's making sure that all your teams are really properly trained and understand what the business is trying to achieve, what its aims are, and why these particular issues that may feel like tick boxes or time wasting are actually really, really important. Conversely, I would say, shut me up if you need to. Conversely, I would say that now is the time also to look at your processes and cut out the stuff that was a nice to have that you don't need.
Yeah.
So be compliant, be appropriate, particularly in the back office. Obviously, that's so important. But if there's extra stuff that you were doing because it was nice to have, and right now you're doing it with less people and you may have some automation, whatever, but now is the time to look at, I've done this with an APSCo, to look at your processes and what your teams are doing and say, look, that was fabulous, but right now that's a nice to have that we can do with that for the moment. We'll come back to it, but right now we can park that.
Yeah, I mean, I've picked up three things I want to discuss from what you said, so it's great, thank you. But one straight off that, we have a business building meeting as Giant and the managers, and we have our list of priorities with 15 things on, and we've taken 12 off that list because people are just getting clouded and there's so much going on. So we've got three things now that we're all working on, and we've almost done one already rather than procrastinate. But the three things that I picked up on time. So rockstar recruiter again, I think is key, and I love that phrase. They need clients need someone who's a partner and an advisor now, not just this is what I'll do, mate, and then we'll go for a pint kind of thing. It's not, that's not the relationship now. Across the business, I think culture and consistency. So everybody is going to be working 3 times as hard because there's less people doing it, or they're concerned for their job, etc. So making sure that people are, from a mental health perspective, that we're being checked on, that everybody can't be happy all the time, but you're giving them the process and support you can as a management team, massively important. And consistency of message. As a leader right now, you can't go in going, one day we're doing this and then change it. You've got to be consistent with the way you're going. And then the third one, and we've experienced this recently, is be on your toes as a recruiter. So we've recently seen a rise in attempted frauds for our clients, where they're being called by a prospective client saying, I need your services. I've got some workers as well, which is really good, because then you can just take them. And agencies or consultants being so desperate that, as you say, cut corners, don't do necessary checks. Well, they've got 20 guys and it's a contract, they're going to pay my margin. They place them, everything's great, place them again the next week, double the number of contractors. Oh, the company doesn't exist. Payments don't come in. The umbrella wasn't a real umbrella, etc. And we've saved a couple of our clients from these issues by helping them with the the compliance checks, etc. But again, if something's too good to be true, probably is. So just make sure you keep on your toes and your consultants as well, and ask the right questions on those things.
Yeah, no, I agree. It really makes me mad. There are so many of those kinds of scams out there now. And we don't hear about it a huge amount, but we do hear about it. And it's, sometimes it's good, solid businesses that you've known for a long time, and it all looks great. It genuinely all looks great. But you're right. You have to do, you shouldn't have to, but you have to do quite a lot of work to make sure that they are compliant. And obviously in the back office, that's very much the same. I just wrote a couple of things down. I'd absolutely agree with you in terms of the leadership team. I don't think leaders always need to have all the answers. No. I think, and right now, if you do, you're superhuman. I mean, God, and I want to know what they are, please. But I think you have to be transparent, as honest and transparent as you can be, and over communicate. Yeah. I think that's one of the things I take away from the current environment is it's easy to remember to communicate with your team, and this can be at any level actually within your team. You communicate once, you think they've got it, and then you don't keep it up because you think, oh, I've told them all, they all understand. Yeah. But actually, when people are feeling insecure, when people are feeling, concerned about the market in general, concerned about their own jobs, etc., you've got to keep that kind of constant communication going so people appreciate and understand where the business is and what's happening, and they know what's happening to their particular areas and their roles. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is, and again, I've seen this a lot, when you go into a business and you see their aims are painted up on the wall or whatever, which looks fab, looks really great. But, and it's great to have aims, and APSCo has 3 key aims, but we check those really, really regularly, and we make sure that everything we do, so it's at the beginning of, it sounds really funny, but at the beginning of the management meetings we have here, we go back to those 3 aims. And then we check that they're still appropriate for our membership. But then we say, right, what are we doing? So as we talk about the things that we're doing or planning to do, or initiatives we've got, how does that fit in with those 3 aims? So if you've got aims as a bit, it's good to have an understanding of what you're trying to achieve as a business, but just make sure it's about that cutting out the stuff you don't need anymore. Make sure that what you're doing is really focused on your core themes, the core things that you feel you need to be doing as a business.
Brilliant. Sam, I think that's a fantastic point to finish on. well, I know I could certainly talk with you for probably another hour about it today. So thank you so much for your time.
You're really welcome.
I think the key thing for me is that financial confidence isn't, I think we've learned, not just the numbers. So it's all those other things that come with it. So consistent service, adaptability, and leadership. So Sam, thanks once again. Been a great guest for us today. Really appreciate your time. Holly, can I just pass over to you to wrap us up today?
Of course. Thank you both so much. That was so good. That time flew, I don't know about anyone else, but that time flew by. So thank you. That was really great. We haven't had any questions come through, but for everyone on the call today, I'm going to follow up with the recording, and that gives you an opportunity to ask any last minute questions. When you get that email, please do reply. I can put you in touch with either Rich or Sam. But yes, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you so much to Rich and Sam for such a great session. Everybody take care, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks,
Thanks very much, guys.
Sam.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.